Welcome back to One Piece Explained. We've been getting a ton of piecemeal news over the last several weeks between various behind-the-scenes stills shared by the official account, a whole sneak peek trailer, and coverage by entertainment trades and press. A lot of the big stuff is pretty self-explanatory, but as always, there are little details that slip through the cracks, ranging from set design Easter eggs to huge plot implications, and I thought now's as good a time as any to cover everything you might have missed over the last few weeks. I apologize for not making this video sooner, but regular viewers of the channel know that I don't like making 3-minute videos to cover one small thing. It just doesn't really sit right with me, and this last month in particular has been rather busy for me personally, so I decided to cover everything in one big video. Now it does seem like they're developing a cadence of weekly news through the rest of the year, so maybe I should reconsider how I approach things, and I'd love to get your take on it. Would you be okay with a slightly shorter video every time some news comes out, or would you prefer a longer one that covers everything together after a while? Please let me know down in the comments. Before we get into all the fun stuff, please be warned that this video will contain spoilers for the Alabasta saga and potentially some things even beyond. When we do go beyond the scope of this season, it won't be in detail, nor will I divulge any series impacting secrets, but I know some people don't want to see any spoilers of any kind, so just thought I should give a fair warning. And while I will be covering a ton of new material in this video, my breakdowns often build off everything I've talked about before in prior videos, so if you're new to the channel and haven't seen any of the big breakdowns like the set tour with Jeff Ward, the Oda set visit, the Loketown set tour, and most recently the teaser trailer breakdown, I highly recommend checking those out at the very least. That said, let's get into it. On Tuesday, September 16th, the Straw Hat Grand Fleet Instagram group hinted at something big on the way with these 4 emojis and an audio clip of Iñaki Godoy from what we would learn the next day was a sneak peek video behind the scenes. We start off with a shot of the Straw Hat crew walking into Whiskey Peak as we get a good look at their outfits for this arc. I mapped out all of these in my teaser trailer breakdown, and most of them were easy to find if you look through color spreads, cover pages, or the anime, but Luffy's was the hardest to place, especially since we only got to see it from the back. It looks like I was correct in my assessment when I said that this was the red baseball uniform that he first wore on the cover of Shonen Jump issue 42 back in the year 2000. This drawing would later find another home in volume 17 of the series. The outfit is spot on for the most part, though it's missing the pair of sunglasses hanging off Luffy's neck. You can see the number 1 and the crossbones on his abdomen and can briefly make out something on the sleeve of his shirt, likely the same Straw Hat Jolly Roger, which makes me wonder if we'll get an in-universe explanation for how Luffy ended up with Straw Hat branded merch. Now, I mentioned in the last breakdown that the show has decided to go with Nami's appearance in the anime version of the Whiskey Peak arc with his pink and black shirt with the text mode on the front instead of the blue tank top that you've seen in starting with the Reverse Mountain arc, but I should have also noted that this outfit was actually first depicted in the chapter 147 color spread. Another difference is that she's also wearing a pair of shoes that has been made to look like the sandals that she wears throughout the earlier arcs of the series. This change was likely due to safety precautions during action sequences, much like why Luffy's sandals were changed as well. As the Straw Hats walk through the town, we get a behind-the-scenes look at the crew filming close up. You might notice that Emily Rudd can be seen wearing pants under her skirt here. This is probably just for her comfort and not part of her costume, as many scenes will be shot above the waist. In the back is the apothecary that we saw in the teaser trailer, and the sign displays all of the services offered. Up top is stitches, followed by gun and sword wound stitches, wooden legs, eye patches, skull plates, and wooden teeth. The last bit at the bottom appears to read made in or made by, with the last word being a little hard to make out. Hopefully we get a better shot of this in the episode itself. There's also some sort of vehicle in the back that we didn't get a look at in the teaser. This could just be something used by the crew to transport people or equipment, but it's strange that it has this whipped cream and cherry design up top. Who knows, maybe we're going to be seeing an ice cream truck in Whiskey Peak. Now, in between this footage, we have some comments from the cast of the Straw Hat Pirates. Iñaki can be seen in what looks like the interior of Drum Castle, and in the back, you can actually spot a stained glass depiction of Wapol with his woolly hippo cape behind him. The glass art on the other wall, as well as the one to the left of Wapol in another shot, are a bit hard to make out. Perhaps these could be the other royals, such as Wapol's father, who was only seen in Chapter 0 and never named, or maybe even Mushuru, Wapol's older brother from the 9th One Piece movie episode of Chopper Plus, which is basically a retelling of the Drum Island arc with some of the later crewmates. Oda depicted him on the cover of Weekly Shonen Jump issue 13 from 2008. Now this all looks to be taking place in the throne room, and given the square pattern on the wall and the door here, and what looks to be the furniture in front of it, I wonder if this is connected to that dining room set inside Drum Castle that we got a look at as part of Oda's set tour visit several months ago. If you're interested in that video, there'll be a link on screen and in the description. We also get a brief montage of clapperboards or slates with some fun details. First one up is for episode 6, directed by Lucas Etlin. This lines up with what we learned about the directing team for this season back in March, with Etlin being tasked with leading the Drum Island arc in episodes 6 and 7. While Drum Island was one of the very first pieces of concept art that we got for this season back in the set tour video with Jeff Ward, the most recent teaser trailer noticeably did not show off any footage of Drum, making this maybe our first look at the island's exterior. This setting looks to be one of the towns on the island, such as Bighorn, Cocoa Weed, or Robel. Perhaps more interesting, however, are the two devil fruits surrounding the production name for this season, Project Renaissance, of course referencing Baroque works. And for context, season 1 was called Project Panda after the great Panda Man himself. To the left is the flower fruit as depicted in One Piece Magazine Volume 6, and on the right is the Munch fruit as depicted in One Piece Magazine Volume 9. We actually saw a very similar clapperboard when Oda visited the set. Now, if you followed my coverage for season 2, you know that we have a strong reason to suspect that Miss All Sunday will be playing a role in the Drum Island arc, perhaps even acting as the big bad of this whole season. So because of that, it does make sense for these two fruits to be depicted here. However, if you look closely above the Straw Hat Jolly Roger, you can make out some text that reads Paramecia. This is one of the 3 classifications of devil fruits that gets formally named during the Skypiea arc and expounded upon in Volume 30's SBS, and is the class that both of these fruits belong to. While I do think Miss All Sunday is going to be in these last 2 episodes, I don't think that we should be looking too closely at these fruits as any indication of the narrative. You see, back during the production of Season 1, we saw clapperboards that read Paramecia Unit, and there were other leaked photos referring to the Logia Unit and the Zone Unit as well, meaning that these were just designations for different staff. It seems there is a similar thing going on here, as when we see the clapperboard for episode 3, you can spot the depictions of the human fruit and the ox fruit model bison, as seen in One Piece Magazine's volume 6 and 12 respectively, although the bison fruit's design was seemingly canonized in the manga proper in chapter 1070, a year after that magazine came out. Anyways, this time above the Straw Hat Jolly Roger, you can make out the text Zoan, and with episode 3 covering the events of Whiskey Peak, it seems rather unlikely that we would get anything relating to Chopper or Dalton in this episode. And I would imagine it's a similar case for the other clapperboard, also for episode 3, which depicts the Smoke fruit as seen in volume 10 of the One Piece magazine. Given the angle, we can't really see the text Logia above the Jolly Roger, but it is a bit interesting that the Smoke fruit is shown twice on here. While it is the only Logia fruit formally introduced between the Logtown and Drum Island arcs, the Sand fruit and the Flame fruit are both at least teased during these chapters. In this footage of a close-up on Luffy, you can make out this cannon-shaped device that we first saw back during that set tour with Jeff Ward. Back then, we suspected that this would be part of the equipment used to deliver the tranquilizing medicine to Laboon, given the giant needle shown along with it, and here you can make out what looks to be a cross-eye at the back. From what we've seen of Crocus's house being located on the base of the mountain itself, rather than inside Laboon like in the source material, I'm guessing this cannon-like device will be used to shoot tranquilizers at Laboon from the outside. When the crew enters Logtown, we see a tourism map off to the side. We had gotten maps of Logtown and the Polestar Islands in which it's found back in Season 1, but none have had this much detail. Unfortunately, a lot of the smaller details are hard to make out at the moment, with the only real landmark that we can see being the central town square where Roger was executed. We then get a glimpse of the log pose, a compass-like device needed to traverse the Grand Line. The adaptation is pretty spot on, though you can see that it's more of a dome in the live action. The needle in the middle also seems to be fixed between a small rod that connects to the top and bottom of the dome, whereas in the source material, it just sort of hangs down. Not only that, but it also appears as if the top of the dome is ornamented with half of a globe. I wonder if this is in reference to the fact that the traditional log poses only work for the first half of the Grand Line. Then, we get a montage of some action sequences, including Zoro's fight against Baroque Works at Whiskey Peak, and the Straw Hats fighting off Buggy's Carnival crew at Logtown. For some reason, this one shot of Sanji is flipped, and if you adjust it, you can make out some of the carnival signs in the back. This one to the left looks to be for palm reading, with a sign reading Madam Fortune, and over to the right is the sign for candy floss, also known as cotton candy, which happens to be Chopper's favorite food. Behind Nami is a booth reading Marine Victory Day balloons, with a hot dog stand beside it, and later on, we can see a carnival game where you throw cannonballs, a nod to Garp's Meteor Fist technique, which we saw adapted in Season 1. There's then the shot of Nami in close-up and Zoro behind. They're surrounded by these large purple flowers, which are actually crocuses, and we'll get a better look at this with the Entertainment Weekly stills, as this is taking place just outside of Crocus's house on Reverse Mountain. There's this brief shot of Luffy and Sanji at what I think may be the fish market that we saw in the source material. We know Daniel Barnett is going to be playing Soppy, the fishmonger, and we had gotten a tease of his outfit back during that set tour with Jeff Ward. Also, just given the arcs of the building here, it looks like they may have adapted this open market setting directly from the source material. Emily Rudd's comments are being made from the interior of the Twin Capes Lighthouse, which we also first saw back during that set tour video, and then we get this shot of Luffy saying "Lucky me." He's a bit roughed up in the scene with his vest charred. This is likely just after he survived the bolt of lightning that came down on the execution platform. Over on the Little Garden set, we see Iñaki talking with Jacob, and you can see all these different colors of paint all over Luffy's face and clothing, hinting at Miss Golden Week's color trap abilities. We've yet to see either her or Mr. 3 in any of this footage, and while we have gotten an on-set interview with David Dasmalchian, who plays Mr. 3, there's been nothing of the kind from Sofia Caruso, so I'm looking forward to seeing her soon. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are seen walking and reacting to somebody or something in front of them. This scene is taking place at nighttime in Loketown, and you'll see that Luffy's outfit is still charred up, meaning this is after he survives the lightning strike. This is probably adapting the three of them running back to the ship after the events at the execution platform, which leads right into Tashigi intercepting them, which makes a lot of sense given Zoro being in the center right here. Also, if you look behind them, there's this cabinet of booth with various masks. Most of them are pretty generic, a lot of the Oni masks, but there are a couple that resemble some of the Sea Kings. The two here with the spikes coming off the top are based on the Sea King that we first see during the Fishman Island arc, named Underbite or Chin depending on the translation. Underneath it is a larger mask or figure that looks to be inspired by Mottled or Spots, the striped Sea King that displaces the Going Merry just before the Straw Hats go up Reverse Mountain. Now back during that set tour video with Jeff Ward, we got a look at the Polestar Gallery, and in the window was a figure of another Sea King, Birdie. We saw a bunch of Easter eggs of these Sea Kings throughout season 1, and I'm glad they're continuing it in this season, though this does make me think the chances of seeing all those Sea Kings in the live action may be a little bit lower now. We then get this scene of Nami striking a pose with her staff after having just finished up a fight. Given her clothing, we can tell that this is on Whiskey Peak, suggesting that she probably fought one of the Baroque Works bounty hunters, and you can actually spot someone behind her face down over this knock table. Nami doesn't have any 1v1 fights in the source material in this arc, so this is definitely a new addition for the live action, but who could this be? Their appearance is rather unique, with this flower coming off the top of their head and this big yellow symbol or Jolly Roger on the back. On one hand, this could be one of the many Baroque Works agents that are never shown in the manga proper, such as Mr. 10 or Miss Tuesday, and we know Mr. 11 has been cast for the season, but we never actually ended up seeing his partner in the source material, so perhaps this might be Miss Thursday, or any of the other numbers or days of the week that are unaccounted for. But on the other hand, this Jolly Roger on their backside doesn't really resemble Baroque Works. What if this is not actually a bounty hunter, but instead a pirate? This distinct design of a flower atop a vertical braid of hair is very reminiscent of the members of the Tulip Pirates, a crew that was introduced as minor antagonists in the Django cover story. Perhaps they were tasked with eliminating Igaram and Vivi, not unlike how we will probably see the Wapol Pirates joining forces with Baroque Works in some capacity. Or maybe I'm just overthinking it all, and this is just some random bounty hunter. We get a glimpse of Usopp in his red floral bandana, likely inspired by his appearance in the chapter 147 color spread. It's not totally clear where this is supposed to be, but given the Entertainment Weekly photos, this is likely the set of Reverse Mountain. You can spot what looks like dried squid hanging in the back, perhaps a nod to Crocus easily harpooning the giant squid that attacked the Straw Hats in the source material. We also get the shot of Jacob and Makenyu laughing, where you can see 3 colorful watches on his arm, just like in that 147 color spread. Zoro's outfit seems to be inspired by his fit in the 107 color spread. There's this shot of Sanji in the kitchen, and we see that he has this pink Doskoi Panda apron that was adapted from the anime. I wonder if we'll see him pick this up at the Doskoi Panda store in Loketown. Behind him, you can briefly make out the labels of the containers. The first one might be mint, the third one looks to be nutmeg, but the one in the middle is oregano. We then get our first look at Tashigi in costume, played by Julia Rewold, with her sword in hand, Shigure or Autumn Rain, and her purple gloves seem to have an additional layer or patch on top of them, while in the source material, they're pretty flat on the back. Her shirt is also a bit different, as it's green with a smaller flower print, whereas in the source material, it is yellow with a large floral pattern. The design here is almost reminiscent of her appearance during the Marineford arc. This green shirt with floral print also looks to be pretty popular in the various video game appearances, but anyways, where she is in the scene is not immediately clear. If I had to guess, I'd say this may be her entering the Loketown Marine base to speak with Smoker, but we'll just have to see. The rest of the sneak peek is a lot of self-explanatory sequences, but this last interesting bit is the scene of Usopp holding up a lantern in the dark. Given his outfit and the surroundings, it's likely that this is when the crew ends up getting swallowed by Laboon, which we'll talk more about in a bit. Now with the sneak peek video came some official stills. The first one shows Makenyu in the middle of a stunt during his fight at Whiskey Peak. There's a bottle of rum in this scene, with some text that's a bit hard to make out. Looks like it reads Savage Heart or Savage Heat, and there's a picture of some sort of fruit underneath, perhaps a devil fruit. We get some more bottles in the still of Nami at the bar. In front of her is a bottle of Old Cactus Whiskey Rum, a brand that is bottled in Loketown. We saw this throughout the first season and took it as a nod to Cactus Island, where Whiskey Peak is located. Beside it is a bottle of Fighting brand beer that also looks to be from the Polestar Islands, given the text on the bottom. The Polestar Islands are of course where Loketown is located, and another still shows Sanji in his Doskoi Panda apron, alongside Usopp in the kitchen of the Going Merry. We have this one of Luffy in the middle of that Gum Gum Gatling sequence that we first saw in the teaser trailer, and behind him in the scene, you can spot Akoli's Trattoria. Akoli was a filler character that took part in the Loketown cooking competition in the anime, and his design and name are based on broccoli, and the little shrubs around the restaurant are trimmed to look like broccoli as well. There also seems to be a store beside it with a mannequin in the window. It's a bit hard to make out any details, but there's this pattern at the center of the dress that's a bit reminiscent of the Kuja tribe Jolly Roger, though this could just be a stretch. We see Usopp hanging off one of the cross trees of the Going Merry's masts. Given the blue screen background, this may be recreating the celebratory scene from the source material when the crew sails up Reverse Mountain. Then we have this still of Luffy standing at what we would come to learn is Crocus' house at the Twin Capes. There are purple crocus flowers all around, and even some growing out of this giant can or tub, which reads Alabaster Fisheries and Canning Company. It looks like this was for sardines and tomato sauce. Not really sure what's up with that, but alabaster is a soft white rock, but it's also partially the inspiration for the name Alabasta, the island that we'll see in the 3rd season, so that's a fun inclusion here. A few days later, we got a promotional poster for the season based on the first episode with the tagline, "The town of the beginning and the end" at the top. This is the epithet of Loketown, of course, as it served as both the prologue and epilogue of Gold Roger's life. This also came with more stills, with this fantastic shot of Luffy at the execution platform, and perhaps this is the cleanest look that we've gotten so far of the building behind it. You can see that it's littered with sun imagery throughout it. There's also a group shot of the Straw Hats at the carnival, likely staring down their enemies in the scene, the Buggy Pirates, but the most revealing image from this batch of stills comes from this new shot of the Loketown Opera House. Surrounding the title of the building are 4 devil fruits. The fruit all the way to the left is a fairly generic design, perhaps just the gum fruit itself. To the right is a fruit that is a bit heart-shaped, which could be a nod to the Op fruit eaten by Trafalgar Law, and the next one over is round with 3 horizontal stripes through the center. This is likely the Sing Sing fruit, the non-canon devil fruit eaten by Uta in One Piece film Red, and the one all the way to the right resembles a blooming dahlia, likely the flower fruit. Now above the entrances to the building are some reviews given to the current production, Hero of the Marines, a retelling of Garp's victory at God Valley. I went over these in my Loketown set tour video, but this new angle allows us a better look at some of the text that we couldn't see before. To the left is a statement from the Loketown Daily News calling the show historically accurate, which is very tongue-in-cheek. In the center, the World Economy newspaper says that it's beautifully directed, and recall that this is the name of the global newspaper that we saw throughout the series, overseen by its president, Big News Morgans, who was cited as the owner of that last quote, critically acclaimed. A few days later, we got these pictures of Smoker's Billoware bike, showing off how incredible its intricate details are. The marine branding all over is a great touch, and as we'll see shortly, the bike is fully functional. Before we get to that though, notice several posters on the walls. Of course, there are a couple advertising Marine Victory Day, a celebration of the execution of Gold Roger, but we also see Luffy's wanted poster all over the wall here, a step up from the first episode of Season 1, where Luffy was upset that he didn't have a poster on the wall in Shellstown. Also present are posters for Buggy and Alvida, hinting at some of the antagonists that will be in town, and up top, among a bunch of propaganda, you can spot Cavendish's bounty poster as well, which we get a better look at in the second still. There's also a poster for Django. Both of these were present in Season 1, but more interestingly, there is a new poster off to the side here. It's difficult to make out, with some people thinking this may be a poster for Pedro, though I'm really not so sure. While we're taking shots in the dark, part of me wonders if the bike over to the other side is actually Admiral Aokiji's. Now, let me explain. A while back, an audition tape leaked from an actor auditioning for the part of Smoker. I hinted at this in prior videos, but I never really covered it in full since it's a pretty major leak, and I still don't plan on showing anything from that video now, but the video included a scene between Smoker and a superior officer who was unnamed. It involved Smoker asking for clearance to chase the Straw Hats into the Grand Line. Given Garp's presence in the live action, many of us just assumed that he was supposed to be speaking with Garp, but some of the specifics of their conversation did not make much sense, including a line about Smoker being a kid when that superior officer joined the force. In the source material, Smoker was not even born yet when Garp joined the Marines over 50 years ago. This, coupled with the idea that this scene was very reminiscent of Smoker asking Aokiji for reassignment to the New World later on in the series, made many think that we may actually be getting the Admiral in this season. Back then, it didn't really make too much sense for someone of that status to be in Loketown, but since then, we've learned there is a huge Marine celebration going on with the Marine Victory Day, so high-ranking Marine officers being around would not be too far-fetched. After all, we do have nods to Borsalino and Sengoku already in this season. I could be totally getting ahead of myself here. Sometimes a bike is just a bike, but I wanted to make mention of this theory at the very least. Now back to the Billoware bike. One major change from the source material is that it's not reliant on Smoker's Devil Fruit powers, as in the source material his smoke would be required to actually move the vehicle, though this might still be a feature as we do see smoke coming off of Smoker's feet in that brief scene from the teaser trailer. The other big difference is the addition of a second seat and footrest for someone other than the user, making me think that we'll see Smoker and Tashigi use the bike to travel together in some scenes, just like we saw in this quick video of their actors taking a joyride on the bike, which came a day after the stills. In this video, they talk about some of their favorite scenes, with Cal confirming the inclusion of the moment where the little girl named Yu runs into Smoker with her ice cream, perhaps his most iconic scene in the series. Julia mentions her fight with McKenyu and the scene of the two leaving Loketown. All of these scenes are kind of limited to the first episode of the season, but I'm hoping we'll get to see more of them throughout. On September 26th, the Grand Line chat teased us once again with some emojis making up the red line, and on the next day came another poster focusing on the episode showcasing the Going Merry sailing up Reverse Mountain. Well, maybe not sailing, as you can see the actual sail of the boat has been rolled up. In the source material, the crew accidentally wind up in the calm belt where there is no wind, so they have to lower the sails and row the ship back on course, and once they're back within the current of Reverse Mountain, all they have to do is just steer the ship. It seems like we may be getting the calm belt adapted in some form, even if we don't get to see all of those Sea Kings, but hey, we can still hope. If you zoom in really closely, you can make out the straw hats on the ship, and the tagline for this poster is "Brace for Impact," which is pretty self-explanatory. This poster also came with a still featuring Nami, Luffy, and Usopp, likely looking up at Reverse Mountain and the red line. Notice the char on Luffy's vest is still there from getting struck by lightning in Loguetown. And about a week later, on Monday, October 6th, the Grand Fleet group teased Laboon with emojis alongside a quote from Luffy and an audio clip of what seemed to be Laboon's squeal. The following day brought us an Entertainment Weekly exclusive showing off our first look at Crocus and Laboon, along with an interview with Taz Skylar, who plays Sanji, talking about the Reverse Mountain episode. This also came with another poster, this time recreating the scene of the Straw Hats getting swallowed by the whale. The tagline here is "The crew's never coming back," which works on a few levels. At face value, this can be taken as a means of embellishing the threat of the scene playing out with the Straw Hats potentially meeting their demise, and it also plays into the title for the season, Into the Grand Line, suggesting that this is a one-way trip and speaking to how things will change drastically in this new frontier. But it also can be seen as a nod to Laboon's origins with the Rumbar Pirates, the pirate crew that promised to meet with Laboon again after traveling the world, but unfortunately was unable to return. Our first still shows Luffy looking out at sea to Laboon, who in the source material is an island whale, a fictional species based on the sperm whales in our real world, which is where Laboon's realistic design is inspired by. In the back, you can spot one of the two lighthouses at the Twin Capes. We then have a still showing Crocus reading a newspaper inside his home, echoing the scene from the source material when the crew first meets him. Now, the newspaper here has some fun details. He's reading the WENP, short for World Economic Newspaper. As mentioned earlier, this is the main global newspaper of the One Piece world. The text all the way at the top reads "The Big News, World Economic Newspaper," a nod to the president's epithet, Big News Morgans. And this little illustration at the top actually looks to be the flying ship that the newspaper uses as its headquarters. To the left is an ad for the Galley Lock Company, a group of world-renowned shipwrights from Water 7. We saw plenty of nods to them throughout Season 1. But the big headline for the Times seems to be the status of Alabassa's princess, with the image being the country's flag. Something happening to the royals of any country is definitely worthy of a news story, and we have seen characters express awareness of the princess having gone missing, so this being in the news does not feel like a big stretch. It also helps to make the story feel a bit more cohesive and acts as foreshadowing for when the princess makes her way into the story later in the season. Now, for the room that he's in, we first got a quick look at it back during the set tour with Jeff Ward, and I go deeper into it in my breakdown, but this still gives us a new angle that we haven't yet seen. Crocus's chair features a lot of intricate stitch work with this ship wheel with the word "fast" written above it on the armrest, as well as what looks to be a sailor on this part. Below you can see various animals, including what may be a tiger, and on the side table are a stack of books, one titled Antiques, hoping that we'll get to see the rest of these titles in the season. On the wall in the back are a bunch of framed photos. I imagine most of them are just filler or props, but there is one that looks like a group of pirates with some text above them. Perhaps this is a newspaper clipping. The one to the right is wearing a tricorn hat and may have a mustache that resembles Gold Roger, making me think this may be a picture of Crocus's former pirate crew. Alternatively, this may also be an image of the Rumbar Pirates, whom Crocus befriended all those years ago, so we'll just have to see. Now, the final image shared shows the Straw Hats enjoying some refreshments with Crocus outside his house. There seems to be a lot of tropical beverages in the scene, perhaps whipped up with Sanji's help, as we saw him making similar special drinks for the crew after the Whiskey Peak arc. We saw this setting earlier during the sneak peek video, and did not see any mountains in the back, meaning the red line is CGI for the most part, but it still looks pretty good. We see the giant tins of sardines and other food being used as beds for flowers once again, and now I'm starting to think that these big cans were used to feed Laboon when he was younger and smaller. At Usopp's feet is a box of tools, which may hint at the scene of Usopp fixing up the Going Merry after all the damage that's done to it by Luffy and Laboon. Now, in that Entertainment Weekly article, Taz Skylar spoke about the set piece used for the interior of Laboon and described it as a giant ship that was repurposed for the whale, and we get a brief look at it in the video of Clive Russell visiting the set. You can really see how massive it actually is, with even smaller ships inside. And one final tidbit, we got a brand new look at Chopper from the banner of the official Twitter account. That's about it for everything that came out in the last several weeks. It's been so much fun covering the lead up to the season, and I can't wait to really dig in once we get more information. If you made it this far into the video, thanks for sticking around. Be sure to subscribe so you can get more of these breakdowns as soon as they come out. And with that said, thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I hope to see you in the next one.